Welcome to the Regen Brands podcast. This is a place for consumers, operators, and investors to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. This is your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, AC, who's going to take us into the episode.
On this episode, we have Alison Czeczuga and Zach West from Gaia Herbs. Alison serves as the Director of Social Impact and Sustainability, while Zach serves as the Farm Operations Manager. Gaia Herbs is supporting regenerative agriculture with their 250-acre Regenerative Organic Certified farm in North Carolina and their more than 200 plus SKUs that contain various Regenerative Organic Certified ingredients. In this episode, we learn how this natural channel supplement leader has developed, implemented, and expanded their regenerative strategy, plus how they're betting that tying regen to product quality and consumer wellness will be the winning commercial strategy. We talked farm worker housing, composting programs, herbal extraction, product label claim challenges, and so much more on this one. Tons of insights and, of course, some good laughs along the way. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Regen Brands podcast. Very excited today to have our friends Alison and Zach from Gaia Herbs joining us. So welcome, y'all.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, every episode we start with me asking, or AC welcomes us in. I ask this question, like, for people who don't know the brand, let us know what it is. But it seems so silly to ask that question for Gaia Herbs because you all are a behemoth and a powerhouse in the supplement space. Have been doing incredible work for years, but we'll still ask the question for those who are unfamiliar with Gaia Herbs, what all do you produce? Please do not go SKU by SKU because we'll be here for the whole episode. But high level, what do you produce and where can people find your product today?
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for the introduction. Great to be here. Gaia Herbs is a legacy herbal supplement brand. We produce herbal supplements in all sorts of formats, from our liquid phytocaps to powders, gummies, syrups, as well as different tablets. And we can't go SKU by SKU because we have over 200-ish SKUs, ranging really from women's health, digestive health, stress, sleep, immune, really every different category of health and wellness. We also have a health practitioner line as well, which is a little lesser well known, but we have we have a pro line that has about 88 SKUs-ish. About 30 of them are exclusive. And so we serve the practitioner area as well. And we also recently, I think I should mention, became the U.S. distributor for Floridex, which is a German-based herbal supplement brand with over 100 years, founded by doctors, multi-generational. So it's been really neat to see the different parts of Gaia evolve. Yes, it's always something going on, very dynamic. But really at the center of it all is our dedication to quality. And that's really brought us to be, the number one herbal brand in the natural channel. We've been around since 1987. And so continuing to stay true to our roots, but also innovate, to serve the growing consumer who is interested in holistic health.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. I have to ask this question to each of you. Maybe you don't have a favorite supplement, but like if you can't name a favorite, tell us the last one you took, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, for me, the literal last one I took was holy basil. And holy basil helps you stay centered, keeps you in the eye of the hurricane, helps with stress support, such as for recording a podcast.
Well, you're doing great already, Alison, so
I know,
no stress.
I'm feeling that basil vibe.
Yeah. And it's just a really beautiful plant. We grow it on the Gaia farm, collect the seeds, but we also source from our partners in India who are Regenerative Organic Certified, Fair Trade, and all that stuff. So, many different reasons to like that product. So I'll just leave it with that one.
Yeah.
Zach?
Yeah, so I actually took two this morning. I took stinging nettle for my allergies, and then also I took some elderberry gummies. So that's just something I take every day for immune support. And they're gummies, so you can't really go wrong there. They're easy to take. They taste amazing. So definitely a favorite.
Love it. And really cool. This is a unique first episode for us, just in terms of the guest profile and the titles and the hats that y'all wear in the brand. and we want to talk a lot about, the brand, but also the farm. So Zach, wondering if you can kind of just give the audience like a high level of this farm, where it's at, how big it is, what y'all grow, just kind of set the table for us there, if you don't mind.
Sure, definitely. So we have about 250 acres on the farm side, and about 170 acres of that portion is actually in cultivation. So that's actual field space with plants and crops. Um, and we are a organic certified farm as well as a regenerative organic certified farm. We became regenerative organic certified a couple of years ago and went right to the silver level, which we're really proud of, and trying to get to
Nice.
that gold level eventually. But that's something we can talk about later, maybe.
Yeah.
And a big part of the farm, like really the heart and soul of it, is the fact that we have 27 guys that come over every season from Mexico on an H-2A visa.
Wow.
And some of these guys have been coming for 20, 25 years, year after year. They know every field, they know every rock, and
Wow.
everything, all the equipment, all the plants. So it makes my job a lot easier. I don't have to really dictate exactly how to do things. They already know how to do it, luckily. So yeah, that's kind of a huge part of the farm for us, is those 27 guys that repeatedly come back every single year and get us through the season. So really lucky to have those guys.
Yeah. We know y'all have done some recent kind of improvements or changes to the farm worker programs, and we want to make sure we talk about that today. I see Kyle's itching to get a question in, so we'll go to him 1 second. I just want both of you to just share your title and kind of the scope of your role, just so the audience kind of understands what hats you do wear at Gaia. And Zach, maybe we start with you, then go back to Allison.
Sure. So my name's Zach West. I'm the manager of farming operations at Gaia, and I've been with Gaia now for almost 2 years.
Nice.
And I'm Alison Czeczuga. Whoa, we'll start that one again. Even I can't say my last name. I'm Alison Czeczuga. I'm Gaia's Director of Sustainability and Social Impact. So I really work across departments, from our sourcing to our farm to operations, to really try to bring more focus into our sustainability programs.
Nice.
Awesome. I'm really glad you stumbled on your last name. I wasn't even going to try. I wasn't even going to go there. So that made me feel a little bit better. But the question I was itching to ask for Zach is, you all have a huge portfolio, like we discussed earlier. You've got this great farm. I'm wondering how much of what you actually source comes from that home farm versus what you source from partners.
Yep. Great question. And that's something that maybe a lot of the general public don't quite understand. We do source about 80%. It really depends on the year, but more or less about 80% of our raw ingredients externally. And so the farm produces about 20%. And we like to say that, we try to grow what grows well in this area, and we let other people who have things that grow in the tropics, for example, we let them grow those. They grow very well there. We obviously can't grow like turmeric or ginger very well. So we try to purchase those from the places where you're going to get the best quality.
Totally makes sense. And just to put place on the map for the listeners, I don't think we've talked about this yet. Where is the farm located?
Sorry, yeah, I meant to mention earlier. So we are in Brevard, North Carolina. So we're in the Appalachian Mountains over on the west side of the state. Just a gorgeous area. We're just south of the Pisgah National Forest mountain range, and then just to the north of the French Broad River, which is, fun fact, the third oldest river in the world. Don't ask me how they figured that out. That is a fact. You can Google it. So it's really cool to have these ancient mountains right here, this ancient river, years and years of amazing sediment that's come down from different floodings, and so we're really truly just honored to have just amazing soil to work with.
Yeah, and I think Allison said there's like 30 to 35 ingredients sourced from the farm, and then I saw on the website there was there's 3 million plants total in that small acreage, which that was crazy to me. That was mind blowing to me.
And
Yeah.
I think it's actually gone up
box.
to. Yeah, I think it's even grown since then to around representing 5 million plants.
Wow.
Yeah, right around there. We have a brand new greenhouse that can host about 3 million by itself, 3 million seedlings by itself.
Wow.
Blowing my mind, literally. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. Yeah, the biodiversity, it comes naturally because we're growing all different kinds of botanicals, and so you have echinacea fields and lemon balm. But then, Zach's also stewarding the biodiversity of the soil. And so that's amazing. In addition to us growing, we dedicate about 10 acres to our employee and community food programs. So twice a week, our employees get free organic vegetables that our farm team grows for us. And then we donate the rest to the community. So Zach and our whole team are so humble, but they really do such incredible work for not only, Gaia as a brand, but our community and our workers and their communities too.
Wow.
Crazy. So there's I'm struggling right now to decide what direction to take this conversation because there's so many different places we can go, and I'm really okay, what question do we need to ask to really hone in here? I need to ask questions for myself, how do you make a supplement? How do you go from a plant to the pill?
Yeah.
But we won't go there first.
We can start anywhere. We just did a 2-hour course training on that. So yeah, we'll go wherever you want to.
Let's go there. Just from, I feel like that's something that most people don't know. Would love to better understand, lemon balm, for example, you just mentioned. That's something I've taken before. How does that plant, how is it grown? Why is it regenerative? And then how does that end up in the pill at the end of the day?
Yeah. So when you think about herbs,
Sorry. Also, I want to rephrase capsule. Sounds so much better than pill. How does it end up in a capsule at the end of the day?
Yes. Yep. A capsule or even different format, liquid. But, when you think about herbs, they come in many different forms, culinary, horticulturally. We focus on the health producing compounds of herbs. And to get those healthy constituents, those phytochemicals, those plant chemicals that are in all plants, we have to extract them. So Gaia has an on-site manufacturing facility as well as lab. So we extract everything on site. We're able to work with the farm super closely to know when stuff is peak potency, when, hawthorn is ready. It's we think it's ready. Let's test it. It's ready. So it comes to the manufacturing facility. And we extract that with food grade alcohol and water. You can also extract, with hot water or, unfortunately, what's also really common in the industry is extracting with toxic solvents. So Gaia only uses CO2, water, food grade alcohol, but other companies, to try to maximize certain constituents will use stuff like hexane and butane and ethyl glycol, which are really bad for you as a person, but also the environment. If you're, extracting mass amounts of herbs with this, to break down the chemical, the plant structures, and then
sorry to interrupt, but I want to pause real quick on the consumer. When somebody's purchasing a package, do those companies who are using those chemical methods have to list that anywhere on their LOIs? No,
nope. There are some FDA regulations for what passes or not. We believe that they're not high enough. So Gaia has, we don't use them at all, but we have, done blind testing on brands that are on shelves, in many different stores that have toxic solvent residues on them. And so when you're taking health producing, health and wellness products, why would you want to have those things that are carcinogenic and harmful? Not to mention they strip that whole plant profile that you really want to have when you take herbs. You don't want to have just one isolate, you want to take the way nature knows best and the way nature grows, and we want to mimic that. So a lot there, but that's kind of the basic central part of herbal extraction. And then it's blended, different carriers are added, and then for Gaia, that's injected into a phytocapsule. But there's different processing for different methods, and it really is a art of herbal extraction and production. And so Gaia does most of ours in-house, but we do work with contract manufacturers, and they have to have the same kind of level of quality that we do, and that's not easy to find in an industry that is continuing to grow, that a lot of people just kind of want to come in and formulate trends and not look at quality from, how is that herb grown? What inputs were on it? How are the workers treated? How was it harvested? What tests was it done? None of this is required to put on your product. So that's one challenge that Gaia has had, I think, and other quality herbal supplement companies have, is how we educate consumers on what is quality and why does it matter, and why does actually sourcing regenerative reflect not only on the communities it's sourced from, but the final product, from the quality of soil, but also the fair trade and social aspect of regenerative. Of if you pay people the right price, they will sell the herb, at the highest peak profile as well, like right after harvest. But if they're getting offers for prices that are too low, they'll often hold that and quality degrades. And so then, you get what you pay for, essentially.
Totally makes sense. And I appreciate you walking us through that. I learned a lot. Super interesting. And I'm curious, I want to take it back to the soil now and get Zach's perspective. Like, for Gaia, for the home farm, when did regenerative become like the priority term? And what has the transition towards regenerative looked like for you? And how does that differ from non-regenerative, botanical growing?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So I can really only speak from my experience here at Gaia, which has only been 2 years. But kind of funny story, I came to Gaia because they were going through this journey. I actually used to work for the Rodale Institute as an organic consultant and a regenerative organic consultant. And Gaia was wanting to pursue this certification. And, I came into the picture and helped them through that journey a little bit. They were already doing, above and beyond even what regenerative is calling for, basically. They've been organic since day one. They've been doing everything correctly as far as kind of fostering that the whole system here, the whole environment, not just the fields, but also some of the buffer areas, the creeks, the rivers. But I think, piggybacking off of what Alison was saying, regenerative, I see this as getting more into storytelling, creating a narrative. Organic kind of already does that a little bit. But if you think of like a conventional product, I'm just going to take Doritos for an example here. You never see a Doritos commercial where they're explaining, oh, these ingredients come from this farm or this farm.
Yeah.
They actually probably don't want you to know where those ingredients are coming from. Organic's a little bit better, and then you get into regenerative, and we're happy. We want to share that information. We want to get that out there to the public so they know where those quality ingredients are actually coming from. And I think that's something that Gaia has had in their mind since day one. They've wanted people to understand how we produce things, why we do things the way we do them, and that they can count on us to give them that quality product.
What Zach just said brought something up for me of just like maybe a cool way to tie in the origin story is to just talk about the direct sourcing and the farm journey and how that's paralleled with the growth of the business. Like, have you always had this farm? Was it just motivated because you're sourcing from all these other amazing farms? You want to do that themselves? Like, what was the actual origin of starting to do some of the farming yourselves / having the farm?
Yeah. Do you want me to speak to that, Zach, or do you want to?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So Gaia Herbs was founded in 1987 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And then in 1997, our founder decided to move to Western North Carolina. And he looked all over the country and chose this area specifically for its biodiversity. It's one of the most biodiverse places of the world, many different microclimates in small different areas. And he knew the importance of direct sourcing, of getting the most high quality product really means you have to start with the most high quality ingredient. And that means having to be involved in that whole process. So very dedicated to quality. And he found an old organic cattle farm in the French Broad River Basin area, Zach mentioned. So super beautiful soil. First herb grown was peppermint, I believe. And when they started the farm in 1997, we supplied, upwards of 80% to our product line. And then as our products kept growing, we had to expand sourcing, both for, variety of plant, like, maca in Peru or kava in Vanuatu, but also as secondary sources. We outgrew the farm relatively quickly. Well, we haven't outgrown it yet. It's still the core. And it'll always be a core. Yeah. But Yeah, the dynamics have changed, but it really it enables us to relate to our suppliers in a way that I think a lot of brands can't, both from growing, but also lab issues, challenges, questions. We have a huge quality assurance team that's able to troubleshoot. And, regenerative practices have always been present on the Gaia farm. And I should mention it's located in ancestral Cherokee land. So, the reverence for this land is very strong. And those practices, regenerative indigenous practices were in this area long before we came as well. And then in 2015, we've been certified organic since our founding. And then in 2015, kind of the buzzword of regenerative, I think, started coming onto our radar more. And the more conferences I went to, the more I heard about it and brought it back to the team. And it took a few years for us to kind of be in the conversations. There was a lot of, what is regenerative? What certification should you use? How do you choose? What is the benefit? So lots of questions. And then we decided to become Regenerative Organic Certified and go with the ROC standard, I guess in 2021 is kind of when we made the decisions. That can fact check me. To get certified in 2022, I believe, was our first certification.
Zach is nodding his approval for the listeners.
Yes, all right.
Yes, we're on board. These are correct timelines.
Yes. And really one of the reasons we chose it was like a cross-departmental group that came together: farming, sourcing, sustainability, procurement. And we really wanted to go beyond organic. I think organic is the baseline that we really value. And it quickly came up of just the social element that we felt was missing from some of the other certifications, or organic, or the environmental movement in general. So ROC has the 3 standards of soil health, animal welfare, and social health as well. And, as Zach mentioned, we have our farm is dependent on our farm team from Mexico, and there's a lot of issues within the H2A program that, we can't fix them single-handedly, but we can create policies that support the dignity and experience of our farm workers. So that's kind of our journey of regenerative and where we've landed with the certification.
Yeah. I would love for y'all to tag team 3 things, because I think anyone who listens to this podcast with any regularity knows ROC, loves ROC. We have the overview of what ROC is. I think the fun nuance to get into would be like, for Zach, why are you silver, and what can you do to get to gold? I think that'd be really fun to peel back that kind of onion for the audience. And then I know there's a new composting program, and I know, we haven't gotten into the details on the farm worker program. So I think those 3 things would be really fun to dive into, however y'all would like to.
Sure, I can start us off there. So we do have a plan to get to ROC Gold. It is a very ambitious level to get to. It's really difficult, because when they made this standard, when you think about making a standard for such a huge variety and diversity of farms, it's really hard to create those specific standard points that's going to fit all the way across the board. So, our farm compared to an apple orchard, for example, well, the apple orchard never has to till. So they've met that no-till criteria very easily versus us here in Brevard. We still till, and we kind of have to. We have we have a farm here in a rainforest, basically. So if we were to try to do no-till, or at least grow not on beds, then our plants, and mainly our plants with roots that we're after, are just going to die. They're going to rot. We're not going to have a crop. So that I think is going to be one of our biggest challenges to get around, is the no-till part of this standard. At the gold level, you are required to be a no-till operation. So for us, I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle to get over. Another big one that I think we're on the right track, is going to take a little bit more time to get to, is to have a third-party social certification. So that would be something like fair trade or something like that. To come in and do a separate certification that would enable us to get past that point for ROC as well. So those those two are two big things. We have a couple other little things to work out as far as crop rotation. And we have one crop as well that lives its entire life in a greenhouse. It is a aquatic tropical plant called bacopa. And it has to be watered many times a day. It can't be out in the cold weather. Anything below 40, it's kind of in danger of dying. So to be a rock gold operation, we have to have everything eventually in the native soil. So we are also looking at ways to possibly grow that in a hoop house where it's in a raised bed, but in contact with the native soil underneath that hoop house. So those are just a couple examples, some of the bigger things that we'll need to address over the next year or 2 years to get to rock gold.
Super interesting nuance.
Yeah,
really
Zach, I
appreciate that.
respect the hell out of your job. Sorry to interrupt, Allison. And I also can't even imagine the level of complexity. The like two examples you just provided out of the 200 plus plants or 5 million plants being grown, like it just seems insane. Also, like the juxtaposition of like, one of the key pillars of regeneration is like maintain living root systems, right? But sometimes you're harvesting the root. So like,
Right.
Again, the complexity has just got to be out of this world. So respect what you do, and I can't even imagine like trying to have to solve all of those problems at the same time. Really,
Exactly.
really complicated.
And that's the whole thing. The context part of it, when they made this standard, and this is a young standard. I'm sure there's going to be changes over the next few years, but trying to meet farmers where they are. If you're harvesting potatoes, for example, it's the same thing. You're going to be digging that soil up, not every year, but every couple of years. So the no-till thing to me is something that's something that might need to be just varied a little bit based on operation.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was just going to add in too, it's interesting with the bacopa example, because that's a traditional herb from India. And Zach mentioned the reasons, climate wise, that we need to keep it in the greenhouse, but we actually started growing this on site. And this shows the ambitiousness of our farm team. We couldn't get bacopa clean from anywhere. So it grows a lot of the times like in gutters or next to areas where water's collecting. And so it'll pick up pesticides, metals, anything from, it's like a bioremediator. So we're growing it in the greenhouse in pots to avoid contamination in that. So we're trying to do it for quality, but then it bumps up against the standards for rock, which is just, that juxtaposition you have.
Yeah.
And
more complexity.
Yeah.
And I did want to just circle back to the no-till thing. This is a hot issue for me. So I just wanted to add one more thing. We are we have been doing for my entire time here different trials to see if we can do at least reduce tillage or reduce cultivation. So we've had a couple of trials with a very small roller crimper to see if we can use that. I'm sure you're all aware of a roller crimper, but it was basically developed by the Rodale Institute to grow a cover crop, roll it down, and then to plant right into that mulch, basically. And then this past year, we've also started a reduced cultivation trial where we plant our crop, and then in the fall we will come through and plant a kind of a cover crop over it of white clover, and that white clover the next spring will act as a living mulch and should keep the weeds at bay, which it has this year for several crops. So we are doing our due diligence to try to adhere to this point. But more to come, to be continued.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to me because I actually think the greatest point of argument in regenerative is actually our greatest point for future success, which is the organic camp needs to till but not spray. The conventional regenerative camp needs to spray but not till. And it's like, what if we all just found the through line of the best possible solution, like given the context? And easy to say, much harder to verify and make sure it's legit and not greenwashed. I get all that. But it makes me hopeful that we've kind of had conversations from both sides of the aisle there. And there is real people out there doing the really hard work of like trying to figure out how to do what they know is not productive as little as possible. Because at the end of the day, the the perfection of the ecological piece is never going to match like modern day business and consumption, what we have to do as like enterprises to make money. And so it's like, how do you create the greatest intersection at that imperfection that you're never going to truly solve 100%? So I don't know. I feel like I just went super philosophical there, but that was
absolutely. It's all about context. I feel it. I'm sure Zach feels it immensely.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you brought us from the specific examples up to like the super high level, how it's really impacting like the entire movement. So I think it's a valuable comment. I do want to circle back to AC's original like 3-pronged question. I think we covered the silver to gold. Mm-hmm. We haven't covered the labor side yet. Would love to learn more about that labor program.
Yeah, I can start and then pass it over to Zach as well. So as you know, as I mentioned, the social aspect of rock is super important to us. Our farm team, as Zach mentioned, consists of about 27 people from Mexico, and together they represent about 250 years of farming experience. So wow. Their knowledge is just incredible. And I'm not sure if we mentioned, but one of them, Jorge Mendez, he's been with us for 27 years since Gaia moved to North Carolina. And so he actually brought his family, you know, neighbors, cousins, uncles, brothers. So our farm team is literally families in different aspects.
That's amazing.
So, and it says a lot. And one of the reasons I wanted to introduce this is because our farm team is so humble, but it just says so much to Zach and Kate, our farm director, and Laura and Abby, and the farm maintenance crew who develop programs that really serve these people who keep coming back and they want to come back. And as Zach mentioned, they have to come on an H-2A visa. So that is a visa through the Department of Labor that enables migrant farm workers to come to the U.S. And it was not created with dignity or humanity in mind. For example, in the housing standards they have, I believe it's about, and Zach might know more stats, but 16 people per one shower head.
Ooh, wow.
And so that's just one glimpse of kind of the standards that they say is acceptable. And even you look at some growers who have migrant farm workers, and their houses are, you know, it's like barracks of bunk beds and bathrooms without doors and no mirrors, and just not any place any respectable human would want to be. So as we were thinking about how we can strengthen our program and getting feedback from our team as well, housing came up as a huge area that we wanted to focus on. And then other areas were health and wellness, their experience to and from Mexico through lodging and transportation, and making sure that's a positive experience, and benefits as well, wages and benefits. So we've done, I can't take credit for it. I was blessed to be a part of the brainstorming, but our team has implemented all of these areas, which is really phenomenal. The biggest one is we actually have a ribbon cutting ceremony next week for our on-site housing. So it's been a 2-year project. Nice. We worked with outside organizations and had a participatory design process, and privacy was really important. So we have, I think 6 to 8 new units. I'll let Zach chime in here.
6 units. Yep.
6 units, all state-of-the-art facilities. And yeah, Zach, do you want to share kind of how it's been with installation? And they literally just moved in, you know.
Sure. Yeah. This is our first season with the guys in the new housing. And first of all, I want to start by giving all the credit to Kate, our farm director, and Todd, who is our farm maintenance manager. Those two have really been pushing this initiative and getting it done on this past off season. And we're really proud to have these 6 new homes on site. They are on site. They're on the farm. That way, in their free time, they have the freedom to walk around the farm. Some of the guys this year, kind of funny update, they've actually been going out after work and jogging around the farm for exercise, which
I love it.
Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. So just providing them with this kind of healthy environment to live and to have that off time when they need it.
Zach, I got to ask, sorry to interrupt. The photo that's behind you, is that a picture of the farm?
So this is actually back, I'm not sure exactly when, but Gaia did have a holding in Costa Rica, and this is
Okay.
actually a turmeric field that is got that beautiful sunset as well. So Gaia did have some farmland down there for a few years and tried out a few crops. And that was a very brief initiative, I believe. Alison, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was only maybe 2 or 3 years. And then they decided to just focus here in Brevard and continue growing in this area.
Got it. I asked because I was like imagining the farm workers jogging in that place, and I was like, what an amazing place! Like jog at sunset after work. That's gotta be incredible. Not to say the current farm isn't beautiful and amazing. I'm sure it is. Just want to paint the
send you
picture
pictures
for,
or bring you out. Yeah.
Okay.
And here,
so apologies for the
I
interruption.
I thought you were just trying to call attention to the visuals to get our YouTube subs up, bro. Which I,
You see, I don't even know what that means, man. So I would never do that.
Oh, that's so good.
And I'll also mention, well, Zach, just hearing that, they're taking advantage of being at the farm. We've like carved a path down for them to have access to the river and a swimming hole. And I mean, it is beautiful. It's, instead of turmeric sunsets, you have echinacea field sunsets, and where they were living previously was about 20 minutes away. There was, issues with the trailers, safety, health. And so just to know that they're like in this beautiful setting, where they can hopefully feel a little more relaxed is awesome. They really deserve it.
And we have them fully furnished. So we have brand new beds, brand new couches, TVs, grills, picnic tables. We just got done landscaping, so they have some fruit bushes. They have a privacy fence. They've already created their own little barbecue area in the back as well, to take their big pot and make their big soups on the weekends. So they've settled right in. And that's one of the benefits that we've offered. There's a long list, but we also work with a few other nonprofits in the area. Vecinos is one. They come out and do a mobile health clinic. So they come out and check out the guys a few times a year just to make sure that they are in good health, and that, if they need any assistance, they have that ability to go to that organization and ask for it. We have a local extension agent who comes out and does yoga with the guys, which is always super fun. They come in to the greenhouse area. We do it in the greenhouse, and they'll come in with their boots and their blue jeans, a little bit muddy, and we'll do yoga, and we'll do that for 30 minutes or so, and then the last pose is I guess it's called the child's pose, where you basically just lay there and breathe. And so at the end of that, the guys actually don't get back up; they just stay laying for as long as possible. But it's a really fun time to see the guys who have never done yoga before and just enjoy it and kind of cut up and bring their own little Mexican flair to the situation.
That's amazing. I don't know if y'all have an internship program on the farm too, but I think the applications are going to go through the roof if people listen to this podcast.
Told them, I was like, can I be on the farm team?
Yeah, I want to go. I want to do like a 2-week, farm stint, learn about regeneration, do yoga, have barbecues. Like, man, count me in.
I know.
Yeah. Just going back to the original question, the last thing is the composting program, which there was a term that Alison taught me in our first call, herbal mark, which I had not heard of before. And it sounded like that was 80% of y'all's waste stream actually, and you're now like composting all of that. So just share the background there with us and what's happening there.
Yeah, I can share the background and pass it over to Zach, and he can kind of update us on how it's going. Also, I was going to say, if you were impressed with his complexity of what he manages on the farm, just wait till you hear about like the composting and all of that. So a few years ago, I believe in 2021-ish, we did our first environmental impact analysis. So we looked at wastewater and energy use, and our waste one was very clear that a huge percentage of our waste stream was this herbal mark, which is the material left over after extraction. So this kind of sludge. And it was being sent to the landfill, and it's all organic and could be a beautiful input for a farm. And we had tried to compost it before, but ran into permitting issues. And it's a big project. But when we saw that it was, 75 to 80% of our waste stream, we could get to, close to 90% or more waste diversion if we can fix this problem. Because we're pretty low generating waste company, overall. And so we kicked off a project team of, how can we look into using this mark in the best, most useful way in a circular system that benefits our farm and reduces the inputs we have to have. And we kicked this project off, maybe almost 3 years ago now, which it's not easy. It's very, very complex. So in those years, we've done a whole lot of testing. We've identified an on-site operational, industrial composting facility that we want to bring on that other companies have had success with. But we also have to do a lot of testing and a lot of pilots. And I'll let Zach kick that off and just kind of talk about that experience, because it's pretty interesting and you learn way more than you knew existed about herbal mark and the complexities of like alcohol and chemical activities and microbes and yeah.
Before Zach dives in, got to give credit to whoever came up with the term herbal mark instead of like waste. What a spin term that is. Like, oh yeah, it's just our herbal mark. Don't worry about it. So
I know, sludge.
somebody was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of present it in a different form, so maybe some people can understand it better. So we have the herbs; they're going into extraction. So you can think of that herbal material going in as like a tea bag. And once you extract it, you have a used tea bag that's basically not good anymore. And so that's what's been going to the landfill. And it still has that extraction material in it, which is alcohol. And that's kind of the holdup. You can't just go out and apply that to the field because the alcohol is going to kill anything that's in the field, the microbes, the plants, everything. So our goal has been to figure out a way to compost this material, or at least to volatilize the alcohol off of the pile, and then to be able to get that compost material back out into the field. So there's a couple steps to that. And number one, of course, is getting rid of the alcohol. Because if you have that in the material, it's not going to compost. You're not going to have the microbes, and the microbes are the ones that are actually doing the composting. So last year we started 2 trials where we brought down, I think it was about 10 or 15 yards of material straight from processing, and we built our own bunker, which had 3 pipes in the very bottom of the bunker to provide a aeration source. So we had air turned on through a pump, and it would pump air in every, I think, 10 minutes for 2 minutes. And the thought behind that was that that's going to hopefully volatilize the ethanol or the alcohol off the pile. And eventually the microbes will be able to inhabit that material and start the actual composting process. So our first trial, we ran into a few issues. We figured out a few things, and we started a second trial. And of course, we had testing all along the way to monitor those alcohol levels to make sure we got down to a certain level that the Department of Environmental Quality deemed was appropriate to qualify for compost. So we did hit those levels, and we are still doing a few extra tests and completing the final application for the Department of Environmental Quality in order to continue the pursuit of building a larger composting facility. So it's been, like Alison said, this has been a long road with a lot of complications and permitting and trying to hit certain parts per million of alcohol. And also trying to do this efficiently. We don't want to compost material over a full year. We're trying to condense that composting time to where it makes sense for us. So yeah, I'm happy to go more into detail on any of those points, but that's kind of the basic premise of what we've been up to for the last year on that project.
He also makes compost tea, so he can go in many directions.
I'm so happy that Zach has the patience and the brain to handle that. I could never. But I was having kind of an interesting thought as you were taking us through that, Zach, of like, I know so little about composting, and I think about it as just we put stuff in a bin or we throw it in a pile in our backyard. And that's maybe how other people look at food production. So not knowing that kind of made me rethink, like that's a lot of the times I feel like the lens we're bringing to food or the main agriculture production as well, which is like most people think it's just a thing that shows up in the grocery store. And I'm just like, oh, compost is just like shit you throw in a pile in the backyard and it turns into something that you can put. And you're like, we got regulatory, we got machinery, we got industrial scale waste streams that we're upcycling. It's like, whoa, like this is a lot more complex than that.
Yeah, I mean, there are books, many books written on just the composting process and how that's supposed to work out, and you can mess it up. You can mess up compost pretty easily. You know, if you go out to a compost pile that you might just have in the backyard, you're not really turning it, you're not watering it, maybe, or you know, it's just sitting back there. Maybe it smells a little bit bad. Maybe it's got some weird, you know, mold or fungus on it. Um, Good compost takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of monitoring to make sure you have the right microbes in place, you have the right microenvironment for those microbes, you have the appropriate amount of air, the appropriate amount of water. It's being flipped on a regular schedule. So there's a lot of little details when you get into like microbiology,
Yeah.
to make sure. And I'm not a microbiologist. I've learned a lot from other people. I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert, but I'm trying to learn every day and to make our compost systems better.
Yeah.
I can share that I am an expert in how to compost the wrong way. I have one of the cool like rolly bins in my backyard. It's hilarious. I just have to own this story publicly because we're talking about it. You know, it's like, cool, yeah, we want to start composting. Like, we want to do the right thing. So buy this like, I don't know, but $150 roller compost thing. You know, start throwing a compost in there. You know, we roll it and stuff, but it just doesn't work because apparently you have to add a certain amount of paper-ish material, which we did not do. And then we moved and we brought our bad compost with us to the new house. And it's still just sitting there. And we don't know what to do with it. It's like, we need to clean the whole thing out. We need to do better. I need to have a conversation with Zach one-on-one. So yeah, to both Zach and AC's point, it's more complicated than just putting your food waste in a bin and rolling it. It's harder than that.
I'll give you a quick you know, synopsis of what I'm gathering. I think your carbon to nitrogen ratio is off. So you need to figure that out and then go from there.
Zach, we'll connect offline, have a separate 1 hour debrief. We'll get through this eventually. But I think we did answer the big 3 questions, so that's awesome. I do kind of want to pivot to the commercialization piece. You know, for a company with the resources that Gaia has, and I've been continually impressed with the knowledge you two have both shared about like your commitment to dedication and like, or commitment and dedication to quality in every aspect of what you do, and even like the housing for your farm workers who come up and stay. Like, it's very evident. So I'm really curious from you all's perspective, you know, how have you thought about incorporating regenerative messaging into Gaia's marketing materials or consumer facing education like programs as you started to roll this stuff out?
Yeah, so it's a very hot topic, and one that I think, you know, many industry colleagues have also discussed of how do you get something to hook our consumers, but not get bogged down in the details. So with our regenerative messaging, I mean, regenerative at Gaia, it's interesting because herbalism is a regenerative approach to health and healing, because you're looking at the whole person, you're looking at the whole system, the interactions. You're not just looking at one aspect of something, you know, and it's same with regenerative. You're looking at holistic management and holistic health and the whole ecosystem. And so you're looking at that, you know, in your body too, when you take herbal supplements. So it's interesting to see that connection. So drawing on that, but I mean, I think it's really important to draw out what quality means and why regenerative is linked to quality, because it really is going above the basics, from how you source to how you formulate for Gaia specifically, and looking at that whole system. Gaia's vertically integrated, and so we're able to look at every step of the way and how that all relates. So I think being able to really draw it back to why it matters to you as a consumer for your health, but then also for the greater communities that we operate in. Because when you take that herbal supplement, that ingredient has had a very fascinating journey, whether it's just from the farm and growing in, the fertile area that Gaia has, or if that journey has been to India or Peru or any other place. So I think bringing that awareness to the consumer is really essential. Mm-hmm. I will say also, so Gaia has chosen to go forward with the ROC certification. We don't have, label claims are important. We're USDA certified organic at our farm as well as ROC, but getting those claims onto products is challenging. So with ROC standards, it's very similar. I'm sure you guys have talked about it's the similar setup for as USDA organic. So you have to have a certain percentage of ROC ingredients in those products. And a lot of Gaia's
95, right?
Yes, for label claims on front of pack. Yeah. And so
that's not a lot of margin for error.
No, not at all. And for a company that has proprietary blends that are very complex, that, in some of our blends, we have 12 ingredients, different formats, raw materials, extracts, being able to get ROC certification in all of those areas is really hard because it's a new certification. So, we can look at single sourced ingredients from our farm, and liquid extracts would be the easiest for us, because if we look at phytocaps, then you also have, glycerin and alcohol, and the availability of glycerin, for example, is not there for ROC ingredients. So
is there even organic versions of that stuff, Allison? I mean, are people making organic capsules? Like that's what the glycerin is, right? Like
yes, you can get organic capsules, but it's hard to get that because of the level of detail and transparency that you have to have for those phytocaps. So that's why we have challenges with that for sure with organic, because some of our products, it's all organic ingredients, but we have challenges being able to meet the cap claim.
Mm-hmm. And my assumption for y'all is like, you got to work hard enough just to get somebody to know what the hell an elderberry is, like let alone understand regenerative, right? So it's like your marketing team is probably working twice as hard just to get people to try some of these products or, add them to their cabinet. Whereas it's like, we're talking regen ground beef. It's like everyone's eating ground beef. So it's just a trade up conversation. So my assumption is the hierarchy of kind of tasks is much different, and the thought process is much different.
That has absolutely been a part of the conversation of how we educate both on the product, the ingredient, but then regenerative. So that's why I really do think that we have to kind of couple those together of, for us, you have to have regenerative herbal supplements, because you don't want to be, it's your health. You want to be putting the best stuff in your body. And for us, that's regenerative.
To continue with the ground beef parallel, there's been some really cool studies that have come out recently with a regeneratively raised cow with a biodiverse diet, and how their nutrient profile changes and how that benefits human consumption. Have you all done any similar studies for like regeneratively grown botanicals versus conventionally grown, whatever that means, I don't know, botanicals, and how the potency is different on one side versus the other?
We have not finished any testing of that sort yet. We are looking into trying to figure out how those phytochemicals can be altered based on agricultural practices. One thing that we have been looking very closely at, especially in the last year, are our soil organic matter levels, any kind of soil characteristics, whether it be carbon or organic matter, to see how that's changing over time. And that's part of the ROC standard as well, is to keep track of that so that hey, you're heading in the right direction, or maybe something needs to be changed. But as far as the actual phytochemical content in our ingredients and the products that we grow here on the farm, that's something that we want to continue to develop and to look more closely at.
Mm-hmm. When I worked at NC State a number of years ago, we did a project. We were trying to grow the natural products industry within Western North Carolina from, growing through marketing. That's actually how I got reintroduced to Gaia, and started knocking on the door, trying to get my foot in. But we did look in that project, we did look at some of like the locally grown organic medicinal herbs we were growing. This one was Chinese medicinal herbs, compared to some that we just bought offline, off of some distributors. And just the visual representation, like I wish customers could see visually, fresh harvested organic herbs from the Gaia farm versus something that you'd buy off a distributor, because you can just see the vitality of the herbs is captured, right after harvest. That's when you dry it, and we're able to do it immediately, store it the right way. And the HPLC analysis, when we did it at NC State, it did show, much more activity in the fresher ingredient, which makes sense because it's just straight off the farm. So I hope we can at Gaia, and customers can just start thinking about herbal supplements beyond the bottle, put as much care into how they think about their supplements as they may about, eating local or organic fruits and vegetables. For some reason, I found that people might not just quite get that this is from living plants, that it's important where they're from and how the whole process is. So that's one of the reasons we're really committed to transparency and traceability. We have a Meet Your Herbs program where you can actually go to meetyourherbs.com, type in a distinct code, and it'll show you where that herb's from, education on the herb, what tests we did to ensure, purity, potency, integrity. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We're the first in the industry to do it, of just really don't trust us. Here's the proof to trust us.
Mm-hmm.
And just to piggyback on one more little thing, there's an old saying, "You are what you eat." We have an internal stomach, and the plants actually have an external stomach. That's the soil. So it really, really is super critical to understand your soil, to know what's in it, to make sure it is a fully functioning ecosystem. When you think of the soil, you might just think of the little pieces of minerals, and there's a lot more in it than just that. It's a huge ecosystem. I mean, you have bacteria, you have fungus, nematodes, the list goes on and on. So making sure that external stomach is fully functioning and complete is going to transfer to a healthy plant, and then to a healthy consumer of that plant as well.
Zach, I love that analogy, and I use it myself. And I think what I love most about it is the gut health has become so prominent for human health recently. And I really hope that wisdom transfers to soil health, and realizing the importance of the soil microbiome, just like we've realized the importance of our gut microbiome. Because you're spot on. It's a healthy soil is the healthy gut for a healthy plant. Which
is where I think if I put my super commercial hat on, that's the opportunity for Regen, because to the mainstream consumer, organic has been watered down to just chemical free. And it has lost kind of all these other things that the organic system should produce, in the quality of the product. And I think whether you're just, regenerative or you're regenerative organic, the opportunity is to tie it to quality. So I love that y'all are thinking about that, because what better kind of beachhead, SKUs and brand to do that than what y'all do. And when I think about how we're going to actually reach a mainstream consumer with this, it's going to be tying it to that health and wellness quality benefit. It's not going to be because they care enough about climate change or biodiversity or even farm worker livelihoods like they should, like we all should, but it's going to be that quality piece.
Yep. Anthony, and just to talk about that for a second, in the organic standards themselves, they say the bare minimum criteria is to maintain the soil, sustain the soil. If you already start at nothing, you're not going to get anywhere. If you're not trying, you don't have to. There's no incentive. And that's why I really like this regenerative piece. You're always trying to do better. You're always trying to make things function in a more complete system. So that's a big differentiating factor between organic and regenerative that I absolutely love.
I'm curious from the commercialization piece here, as you all have started, you've achieved Rock Silver, what are the conversations like with the retailers when you talk to them about these new regenerative initiatives? And I realize as I'm asking the question, neither of you are salespeople, so maybe this is the wrong audience to be asking, but just out of curiosity, how have those conversations been?
I was thinking closely. The same thing too, Kyle. Maybe what is the sales and marketing team asking them for? Because they got to be getting that information from Zach and Alison too. So I feel like that is an interesting way to frame it. Maybe. Sorry.
Yeah, and I do work with the sales and marketing team quite a bit. So Our retailers are very excited about regenerative. Sprouts and Whole Foods Market in particular have been very excited. I was able to speak actually with the CEO of Whole Foods at South by Southwest on a panel about climate-friendly food and regenerative, and they're really pushing standards and labels and making sure that greenwashing doesn't happen. There's, of course, challenges with getting the standards and labels, like I mentioned. So really have appreciated their partnership. And same with our independents. I mean, the regenerative aspect of the movement, I think, really resonates with a lot of our retailers and supplements because of the whole health healing and the whole system and the holistic approach. But they're struggling too of how do you get that down to consumers of why it matters and what do we show them that brings them in the most. And I think some of it's, testing and learning as well. But I mean, it's been really exciting to see organizations like Rodale hosting the Regenerative Healthcare conference and really bringing doctors into the conversation as well around regenerative, because if we can start to have doctors understanding that more and thinking about that more and adding that to, their list of research areas, which is not required in school, I think will really help this movement as well, to have some people who are really influential in that space, of not just anyone saying like regenerative's good, but well-known, accomplished doctors really linking it to the whole system and to our own health. Yeah.
I don't know who's going to go next.
I thought you had something else feeling.
I thought you were leaning into the camera. I was like, is he going to go? But no, I think you're spot on. And I think that's the first time anybody's mentioned the doctor piece. I think that's really interesting. I did not know Rodale was putting those clinics or events on. And I love the concept. And you kind of alluded to it, that a lot of doctors don't really study nutritional health, right? It's more like how do I solve this problem with a pill? Again, pill, not capsule, pill.
Yep. Diagnosing one thing, not looking at the whole system.
Right. And I think the preventative health or, food is medicine, whatever movement, the more we can get that into the mainstream, I think it can make a really big impact in a lot of different ways. So I think that's a really great answer. And that was my only comment. AC?
Yeah, I think we haven't talked at all about the practitioner line, and maybe there's not a ton we can share there, but it just makes me think of, Kyle and I both got into Regen because of our own personal health struggles. And I've been prescribed a lot of natural remedies, herbal supplements, et cetera. I had no idea y'all had that line. And we have countless story after story of people we talk to and people that have been on the podcast that want to work on regenerative, want to be big supporters of regenerative because of personal health struggles, which is obviously, somewhat sad because that's the origin. Yeah. However, like things like that as a beachhead into getting people to care more and then becoming evangelists, becoming kind of super consumers, like that's really cool. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So just think there's cool stuff to be had there.
Definitely. It's one area that makes me really excited for sure.
So let's pivot to like the future, like what's next for Gaia. It sounds like, I really appreciated the information about how hard it is to get like rock label claims on like an actual package because of the complexity of the supply chain and the number of the ingredients. So moving forward with the regenerative hat on specifically for Gaia, is the goal to get more like maybe single ingredient rock SKUs out there with the certification? Is it really to focus more on the development side? Is it trying to get more of the non-farm supply chain rock certified? Like what all are you focusing on there internally to continue down this like regenerative path at Gaia?
Yeah, a bit of all of that actually, from the product development side to also the supplier network development side. Gaia we're a certified B Corp, but we're also a public benefit corporation. So we have 3 different areas that we focus on: health and wellness, environmental regeneration, and employees and community. And so we have goals within each of those, and we have a specific one related to ethical trade and, not only rock, but, fair trade. Fair Wild is another certification that is regenerative in nature and has equivalencies with rock. And so we have a public benefit goal to continue to increase our certifications. And those are, yes, in hopes of being able to label, being able to talk about them more to the consumer, but also as supply chain resiliency strategy. We know that if we're paying farmers the right price, which rock includes, we're going to be able to have these farmers growing for us for many years ahead. I'm sure you've heard from sourcing people from various different brands, but farmers not farming anymore is a serious threat. And so we need to make sure that we treat them right. And then, yes, from the product labeling side, our team is definitely looking into what we can do to get those claims and to take advantage of the growing movement. It is neat to see that, the recognition of the rock label is continuing to grow in certain areas. And so we're excited to see that, but it's complex theme of maybe all of this, but and exciting.
That'll be the title of this episode: complex and exciting.
It's complex.
Well, I mean,
perfect.
You guys are going to be, there's one gap episode between y'all, but we just had Brianna from Yogi Tea on.
I listened. Yes. She's amazing. And Yogi is doing incredible things. And that's actually one call out, just the industry partnerships and how important they are, especially in the botanical supplement industry, because we face a lot of different things than some of the other CPG brands. And Yogi has been a great partner with that. And we've connected through the Sustainable Herbs program. And that really brings together botanical brands who are really trying to make sure this industry stays in a regenerative path.
Who is spearheading that or organizing that, Alison?
So it is spearheaded by Dr. Anne Armbrecht, and it's currently housed under the American Botanical Council. Nice. So it's kind of been a springboard for that kind of work. And last year we did a learning journey where we started in Southern Appalachia and heard from wild harvesters in the region who are growing, black cohosh and golden seal and other native plants who have been traditionally harvesting for generations. So that's, means literally going into the forest and harvesting wild plants for medicinal use. And then they also came to the Gaia farm to visit and hear about what we're doing. And it's a really refreshing group that is thinking, beyond business day-to-day operations, P&L, net sales, and really kind of getting to the heart and spirit of what the essence of herbalism is. Because herbalism is just not produce an herbal supplement. It really is the connection to land, to plants, to each other, to yourself. And as herbal leaders, if we don't continue that, it's going to get lost. And that's what's special about herbalism. We have formulators who are working on our products who have years and years of training in herbalism and nutrition. And there's a much different approach to what they do than to folks who may not have any training and are just marketing off trends. So yeah, all that to say is just really trying to keep that, that core alive.
Love it. Super fun episode, y'all. I'm learning so much. This is going to be a fun one to put the show notes together on and put the highlights together on. Would love to take us home with the final question that we ask everybody and get, thoughts from both of you, which is, how do we get Regen brands to have 50% market share by 2050?
I think it has to go with linking regenerative to health and wellness and why consumers should care. I think many people care about biodiversity and climate, but humans are ultimately selfish and care about their own health and wellness. And so bringing that back of how this is impacting you, I think will be essential. And investing in the infrastructure for this to happen. It's not going to happen without investing in farmers and investing in the land.
Love it.
Zach, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I would just say, in a similar vein, just education to the general public, trying to compare the current food system with what could be, and how much healthier that would be. You're basically making your health, you're turning that from a reactive situation to a proactive situation, which is kind of what we always try to do on the farm, is to foster that proactivity and to make sure that we have an immunity built into the farm. And so that, that goes into the soil and also goes into personal health. So education for me is a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know AC and I both agree with both of those takes. Yeah. And the hardest part about education is like you almost have to do like inception education. Like you have to package it in a format that people will really care about, and they will learn without the intention of learning, And I don't think anybody's really cracked the nut on exactly how to do that for regeneration yet, but I think that will be one of the key unlocks.
Yeah. And it's been interesting. I think that's why we do this podcast, because we're so bullish on brands as not the silver bullet to solve all the problems in regen, but as a very important piece, because that's the interface between the land, the farmer, the product, and the consumer. And
absolutely,
if we can use that health and wellness and quality tie-in to boost overall ecological knowledge and education, like that's it. And I feel like the people who have been in this movement before it was called regenerative, whatever we've called it for so long, I'm sure it's been very frustrating to feel like the ecological knowledge of our population is so limited. But it's like Kyle just said, we might have to lead with something else to then get to that end, which I feel like this is the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool.
Well, super appreciate the time. This is where I naturally tell everybody to go to the website. So check out GaiaHerbs.com. That's GAIA herbs.com. Looks like you got a new, functional mushroom line. It's being featured on the website. It looks super cool.
Yes,
we didn't have time to dive in and talk about SKUs, but it looks awesome. But super appreciate the learnings from both of you. And Zach will absolutely connect with you offline to learn how to compost properly. So thank you for the time.
Thank you all so much. This was great.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
For show notes, episode transcripts, and more information on our guests and what we discuss on the show, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also find our Regen recaps on the website. Regen recaps take less than 5 minutes to read and cover all the key points of the full hour-long conversations. You can check out our YouTube channel, Regen Brands Podcast, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe to future episodes, and share the show with your friends. Thanks for tuning in to the Regen Brands Podcast, brought to you by the Regen Coalition and Outlaw Ventures. We hope you learned something new in this episode, and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.